7 o'clock. Call this meeting to order. The regular session of the Board of Education, Kaneland Community School District 302. We would like to inform all board meeting attendees that this meeting is open to the public and is being live streamed and archived for access at any time by our community members on the internet within 24 to 48 hours of the meeting's conclusion. Say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call when you have a chance.
Mrs. Simmons.
Here.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Here.
Mr. Carey.
Here.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Here.
Mrs. Witt. Mrs. Junk. And Dr. Waller are absent.
With 4 present, a quorum is established. Does any board members want to move any item from the consent agenda to new business?
No.
Seeing none, okay. I'll entertain a motion that the agenda be approved as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye. All right, we'll move to board superintendent salutes. Dr. Layden.
Yes, thank you. We have 2 salutes. If you recall, last Thursday night here at Harder Middle School, our 8th grade students went through their promotion exercises and had their end of the year 8th grade dance to conclude their middle school experience, and they'll be moving on to the high school. And then second, speaking of the high school, yesterday our senior class graduated, and so we are officially now had our 8th graders promoted up to high school. Our seniors have graduated, and Friday was our last day of school. So even though it doesn't feel like it outside, today is the first day of summer.
Fall?
Fall, yeah. And that was all I had. Thank you.
Illinois summer.
Yes.
Yeah. Any board salutes? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items, including approval of account payable and payroll, May 2022.
So moved.
I got to read them all.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Thank you for trying to help me out there. Approval of minutes of the May 9th, 2022 regular meeting. Approval of resignations, terminations, and employment of staff. Approval of food services fees for 2022-2023. Approval of mobile classroom application. Approval of Illinois Association of Public School Boards annual dues. Approval of bid maintenance vehicle. Approval of lease with Canon for graphics printing press informational items. Freedom of Information Act report and the student suspension data report. Now I'll entertain a motion to, or go ahead.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
All right, we're going to move on to public comments. The board values public input The board values public input to inform our decision-making and to provide information and insight into what is happening throughout the district. Board meetings are held to conduct the business of the Board of Education and are required by law to take place in public. However, they are not public forums. We use the public comment sections as an opportunity to listen to our stakeholders. For that reason, the board does not enter into debate or respond to questions spontaneously or without proper investigation and deliberation. In most cases, concerns or questions requiring follow-up will be referred to the superintendent. If you choose to speak publicly, we ask that you do so at the microphone, state your name and the village of residence or your association with us for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less so that all who wish to speak may have the opportunity to do so. Public comment is a maximum of 30 minutes with a 20-minute total length of time for any one subject. You are encouraged to seek private appointment to discuss matters concerning individual students or staff members. While public education can be an emotional issue, and understandably, the board strives to maintain a certain level of decorum at this meeting. Those who speak are expected to maintain the tone of courtesy and civility too. Okay. I have 2. Tanya Grossinger.
So, Tanya Grossinger from Maple Park. Hi, everybody. Question for the board members. Upon doing registration for my 5-year-old daughter last week, it was brought to my attention that there was a survey. Now, I did bring this up to some administrators. They have since removed the survey because it is not supposed to be done for this coming school year, but for the next school year, 23-24. My issue, though, is what is in the survey and what is being asked. My post about this has somewhat kind of blown up a little bit throughout the state of Illinois. Thank God I took my daughter's name out of it. But not just in case some of you aren't aware of what the questions are asking. This is for all new students who are being registered in Illinois schools. And this was what I was asked about my 5-year-old daughter. What her gender identity was as a male, female, non-binary, gender non-conforming, not listed, or choose not to answer. She's 5. She doesn't know what she wants to eat for breakfast most mornings, let alone what she wants to be when she grows up or what she feels like, number 1. Number 2, my next question that I was asked was, what's her sexual orientation? Straight, lesbian, gay, asexual, bisexual, pansexual, not sure, questioning, not listed, or choose not to answer. Again, this is for a 5-year-old. Here's my problem, and here's where I'm coming to you all. I don't have any pull with ISB. I'm not really saying you all do, but as a board, them being another board, may have an email address or something I don't have. This is inappropriate. I don't care if the child is 5 or 15. It's nobody's business whether my child is a lesbian, is pansexual, is non-binary, or what's the other one? Gender non-conforming. Nobody's business. If I choose to share that, if my child chooses to share that with their teachers, with their administrators, that's our personal choice and something we should feel free to do. Now, it does say choose not to answer. My issue is these shouldn't be questions at all. It's nobody's business. I am begging you all to at least send an email showing us that you care about this issue, because I was literally sick to my stomach registering my daughter. And I couldn't complete registration without completing this form, whether it was clicking choose not to answer or what. I had to do it. This is nobody's business in the state. I don't care what their idea is of this will help us get to know. It's none of their business. What I do, what my daughter does, what my children do, our business and our business alone. If we choose to invite others in, so be it. Please help us fix this before the 23 school year, because this is BS.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Scott Stelka? Sorry if I said that wrong.
No problem.
Hi, Scott Stolkup, got 3 students in the district from Sugar Grove. So I got 2 things. One, I saw the survey, and while that wasn't in place for my kids, I had to register them. It is troubling to me for a couple of reasons. Some of these questions you can't even ask to somebody you're interviewing for a job. How are you asking a parent of a kindergartner? So there has to be some breach here. There's got to be an issue that is being overstepped. So that's one. The second that I want to bring back is I know you guys did the staffing, and the librarians all have been removed and reassigned or brought back in some other capacity, be it a dishwasher, whatever it is. But what I really want to make sure is who is going to police to make sure that all of the activities that were had in the libraries are still being maintained. The reading clubs, the reading challenges, all of those things that are getting the kids excited to perform and go the next step. I will tell you that one of my kids was in tears for 2 days this last week when they found out that their librarian was not going to be there next year. So you guys are impacting the kids, and you just need to make sure that the the challenges and the reading and the nurturing that those people are doing is still being maintained. Thank you.
Thank you. There's nobody else that signed up, but we still have some time. Is there anybody that would like to speak? Okay, we're going to move on to new business. J1, approval of capital plan for summer 2023.
Yes, thank you. I will turn that over to Dr. Fuchs with just a quick reminder that we're shifting this timeline a little bit with, you know what, I'll let Dr. Fuchs tell you because I don't want to steal any of the thunder. Dr. Fuchs,
So proud of you.
a little self-control.
There you go. Thank you very much. I'll carry on where you started. If you'll remember, we are switching the timeline of the capital improvement plan. The reason why primarily is because of the lead time that it's taking to get supplies, get labor, et cetera. And so we want to make sure that we're ready to go for summer 23 because some of the designs, some of the plans take extra time. And so we want to go over this with you. I say we because Mark Payton and I were supposed to tag team tonight. Mr. Payton couldn't be with us. He is watching online though at home and may help if you all have questions that I can't answer, but we'll see how that goes or not. We can always follow up. There is no action for tonight. The purpose of tonight is to give you the report, answer questions, share a few of the highlights, and then if there are no questions that need answered, I'll bring the recommendation back on consent for June. Otherwise, we can put it back on new business in June, answer the questions, and then move forward with the projects. So this year in particular, this is the second time you've received this report. However, the report is updated. In April, he and I went back to each of the building principals and back to each of the department chairs, not department chairs, department heads, and made sure that what we had is still applicable. Is there anything new that we need to know about? And make sure that that line of communication regarding capital needs was had. Because the principals live in the buildings, we just think we know based on different things what needs to be done. They have to help us with that. So with that being said, I won't go in a lot of detail for each building. I'll just give you a few highlights because you have heard it. Please remember that we are still in the process, specifically for the high school, of engaging the consultant to work on the master facility plan. So some of the items in the big list is to wait until that plan either gets approved and move forward, or we know we're not doing it, and then we'll reprioritize if necessary at that time, specifically for the high school. So in terms of Blackberry Creek, they have very few things that need to be done. Whoops, before I go to Blackberry Creek. Right before Blackberry Creek, I do have the 2022 project completion report, and this is based on May 17th. So we have most of the projects, the bids are in, but I'll have to redo this next spring so that you can see if something came in under budget and we didn't need the allowance, I could take that out. And then we've got two projects that we don't have numbers yet for, but we wanted to at least get that information in here for you, because this is this summer's projects. Ryan?
You said you were starting on that list, but the previous page, you talk about a proposal from Wolf for a $4 million.
The lighting?
Yeah.
Yep, we're not doing that at this time, but we got the proposal so we know what it would cost if we wanted to do it.
Thank you.
So we're doing it in just little pieces. We're not implementing the whole thing. Whenever we can get a lighting grant, he'll like if the grant is $50,000, he'll do up to that amount. Mm-hmm. But the whole proposal for the whole district is significant.
Okay.
Yeah. The payback time keeps shrinking, so maybe sometime we will want to do it. As electricity costs go up, that gives us more reason to do it. But right now, he's still looking at 13.7 years for payback. So,
Fair enough, thank you.
yep. All right, back to Blackberry then. See if I can tell you a few things here. Remember with the life safety, we've divided those projects up into the next 3 years. This summer, doors and windows. Next summer, plumbing. The following summer, electrical. And that should complete all of the required life safety projects. So at Blackberry, that's the only thing we have listed is the plumbing systems. And I believe that one actually might only be for replacement, the bottle fillers, water bottle fillers. We're putting some of those in each of the schools as drinking fountains carry germs and things like that, and the bottle fillers are better. I'm going to keep going. John Stewart, this summer is one of the biggest projects, and that's the fact that their parking lot is being repaved, not just seal coated, but repaved. That same thing has to happen next summer at John Shields. And then this summer, or next summer, 2023, similarly, Stewart has the $9,000 in plumbing, and then life safety work for plumbing is $75,600 estimated. So it's mostly life safety and then the bottle fillers at John Stewart. John Shields is the one I just mentioned. They've got the water bottle and then also life safety work. All of that is again plumbing, and it will be put all into one project. McDowell has just the bottle fillers, and then for 2023, you can read the narrative for the rest of the years. Harder Middle School, they've got the $74,000 in plumbing and life safety work of $33,600. I'm trying to think what that other plumbing one is. I'm not sure what the other plumbing is at Harder there, that 74. The life safety is listed below at 33,600.
Dr. Fuchs?
Yep, go ahead.
Can I ask just to clarify? So I'm looking at John Stewart here, and I see total life safety, but I see paving empty for 2023. Oh,
Because that's in 2022.
yeah, that's future. Forgive me.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Yep. And then you know what? Shields, I missed it, but at the top there you see the 765.
Yeah. That's
There you
what it
go.
was. Okay.
That's at Shields. That's the their parking lot.
Got
It needs more than just seal coated. It's 21 next summer it'll be 22 years old. So that's why that one's got so much, the Shields. And then Meredith, remember we've got the Ignite Academy opening in Meredith in fall of 23. And so one thing that you see on here that you have not seen before, we've always known it, but the parking lot at Meredith. So we're gonna try and do all of it, but we are going to bid that one with the farthest north piece left off and make that an alternate, so that if the bids come in right, we can add it, but if not, we'll let that far part go, and we think we'll still have enough parking for what we need for Meredith.
You mentioned a possibly alternative covering for it, correct?
Yes, thank you. If we have to leave it and not do anything with it, then what we're hoping is that when they grind the parking lot, the existing, whatever's left of it, that they can put the grindings over there and roll it, and it will be similar to the drive that goes out to the water tower by the soccer fields. So we've done that before, where you use the grindings, and then it's certainly not paved and things like that, but it's better than what's out there now. So,
Dr. Fuchs?
yep.
How much money is in the budget tentatively for
Yep.
projects next year?
Sure. That's on the second to the last page, I think it is here. How about, I'll tell you, it's $1 million for the regular O&M budget. I have it, I didn't do my page numbers. I'll get there shortly. I have $1 million in there from O&M. I've got $800,000 from ESSER, and I've got another $1 million from the bond and interest money that we're going to talk about at the end of June. So that's about $2.8 million possibly available.
Okay. Has the board directed what to do with that bond and interest money?
No, not at all. It's a
Okay.
possibility.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's part of this
You know what,
conversation
though?
and follow-up.
Yeah, you can only use it for capital projects. It can't be, because you can only pay bonds with it, and the bond would be used for capital construction.
Okay. I'll wait till we.
Yep. And then I'm gonna bring in Bob Lewis from PMA, and he'll give you the legalese
Okay.
in June about how it works, because there's a whole process to get to it.
I'm assuming because the bonds mature.
This one is the excess money that's in bond and interest. So each year, the county clerk in Kane collects 1% extra, and over time, that money's just sitting there. And so we're going to use it, or we want to use it, it's up to the board. We want to use it for capital, because it's one-time money. Once it's gone, it's gone. And then also, the process involves you have to sell a bond, and then we'll pay that bond back with that money, because that money is in the bond and interest fund, and you can't transfer it, so it can only be used to pay bonds. And you can't pay the outstanding bonds, you can't pay them ahead, like your mortgage you can,
Okay.
or your credit cards, you can pay ahead. I'm sorry, car payments.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, prepayment is not allowed on school bonds,
Okay.
on GOs. So this makes most sense on how to use it. Instead of, right now, it's just sitting and earning interest, basically. So we could, and obviously interest rates they're going up, but we can get more bang for our buck right now out of using it. So, but let's hold that conversation, till next month. But think of questions that you have between now and then.
Okay.
And then we'll have Mr. Lewis come and answer all of them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Because I've not ever done this bond before. This is the first time that we've ever had enough in there to have a conversation about.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
you bet. All right, back to the middle school then. The parking lot and plumbing and life safety is on the list. That's at Meredith. The high school, as you well know, has just so many needs in terms of capital projects. You can read the narrative, but let me focus on next summer. Next summer at the high school, we've got some mechanical to replace the water heaters. We've got, we want to repair the cracks and recoat the tennis courts. We want to remove the rubber coating on the track, recoat the track surface and repaint it. And then the water tower is also getting in really bad shape, as we've never done anything with it. So Mr. Payton has gone out and gotten a proposal, or proposals. I think he's got one or two of them. And we can talk about, or I can put more information for the water tower in the report for the approval. But it makes most sense to do a lease with it. It's a maintenance lease. And then that way, they will keep it up once we get on the lease. The first 3 years, it's expensive. It is $130,000. Let's see. I've got a little at the bottom of the last page. We'll pay the maintenance contract that'll include the paint from this point forward. It's $130,000 for 3 years, and then $35,000 per year after. But then that will include getting it painted and keep it up.
Define keep it up. Is that just
I
paint on
think
the outside?
cleaned, if I'm not mistaken, because like we had to have it cleaned before, and then now it needs to be painted.
I'd like to know how much it would cost to just do that versus a lease to accomplish the same thing.
I think
Just, you're talking about a one-time.
one-time
expenditure to have it
paint.
Cleaned and
Yeah.
painted.
Instead of
Yep.
signing a 3-year lease. how
He
much-
told me,
Or the frequency of how often it needs to be cleaned.
since I would say in the last 10 years, we've only had it cleaned once. And that might have been the first time since they put it up. They put it up in, I feel like it was 2004 maybe. I'd have to go back and look. So we've got some questions that we can get answers to. Are you taking some notes? Thanks.
I'm just curious, would it be possible to give us, so they put it up, what was our total cost of maintenance between now and then? You know, some sort of figure to determine, that's what Brian and I agree, is alluding to, you know, is the value there to have that maintenance option and then we never use it? Or do we buy it outright and then, you know,
Yep.
pay as things?
That maintenance would include, it doesn't include the cleanings, and it was put up in 2003.
So it's been 19
And
years.
the maintenance contract would include, future paintings. So I wonder, I'll try to get some more information and get that to you guys. He told me how much it would cost just to have it painted. For some reason, I feel like it was over 300,000. But let me get a real number for you.
Thank you.
Yep. Let's see.
Do we have an educated guess as to when we're gonna have the facilities plan and all of that available? Because one of your plans is to redo the track, which was part of the, and I'm just wondering
Yep.
if we're gonna go to a bond or whatever we're gonna do, should this be on the schedule for next year?
Yep. We talked at length about that to try to figure that out. So we believe it should go on the schedule because either way, it needs to be done unless if we move it, but if we move it, we're still gonna need it while we build the new one. And so you're talking a minimum of not next summer, because say you pass a bond in the spring, then you gotta sell the bonds, get the vendor, start digging. Now you're 2 to 3 years out, and what he's got in there will only last 5 years. So we
I see
think
your
that we think it needed to be done before. We really need to do it. And then as we figure out what's gonna happen with the master plan, we can play into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because of the time it takes to get everything done. I know.
I get it.
Yep, thank you. Let's see. All right. So in your plan, in conclusion then, on that page before the totals, that's where I listed, we've identified for 2023, 3.2 million. We've identified how we could pay for about 2.8. So that leaves about a $500,000 that we either need to have some feedback on from the board, we need to reduce, or we need to find more money between now and, next month when we ask for approval. The summary pages has it by school year and then by project type so that you could see that. The next 4 pages have everything listed with a priority of number 1, 2s, and 3s. And then the MFP, that's the high school stuff that we've put into the master facility plan. So once a final decision is made on that, if we decide not to do it, all of those things need to be reprioritized into the capital plan. The total over 5 years is about 19 million, 19 and a half. And so you can see, as we well knew, we just have a number of capital projects that we need over time, primarily for the high school. You can see that the high school has a loan over 12 million listed. The other buildings are in pretty good shape, with that John Shields being number 2, but a lot of that is the parking lot. And then Meredith and John Stewart, and then the other ones are minimal. So our goal is to continue doing as many projects as we can with the available monies that we have. On the very last page of the report, this is the information that we plan to bring to you for approval in June, minus, like I said, either figuring out how to do a portion of something or finding additional resources so that we're not $500,000 off between what we've identified and the projects. So,
Where are we at on the tentative budget?
minus 3 million, I know. But this would be for 2024, because the projects that we're doing this summer are going on the tentative budget that we're talking about.
Okay.
So let us get that one done, and then we can project forward. I mean, I can use the ones that we've got, but by the end of June, I'll know better where we are for this year, moving forward, to tell you where we're at for the 2024 budget.
I misunderstood you earlier then, because you said we don't have enough money for the 2023, so tell us to cut or change or something. Did I not hear you correctly?
This is for summer of '23,
Right.
which is a 23-24 budget year. So what did I say? Yeah, I want to make sure that.
No, I'm not trying to catch anything. I'm getting confused now. So,
Okay.
I guess I'm asking where the 23-24 budget is right now.
That one is still showing just a little bit negative, but it depends on 21-22, 22-23. So it's just, I can't remember.
That's fine.
It wasn't very much because I've plugged in the new CPI, and that's helping significantly.
Okay. I guess the overall point I was going for was if we're at a negative, even or negative, I want you to cut so that we're at an even budget.
Okay. That would be my goal,
I don't
to
care.
get us back.
Yeah, I don't know. You know better than I where to cut, but
Yep.
I want zero budgets, please.
Okay.
That's my opinion. Because we don't have the reserves to.
Not to keep depleting them. I agree with you.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there any potential grant money out there that either we don't have the resources to go after, or we could be overlooking to supply us, further on down the line or in the near future? I realize that, a lot of staff is at full capacity, but one thought is with the new position that we're potentially talking about next year, I don't know if we could incorporate grant writing or, attempting to, is that possible? Or do you feel that you've already extended pretty much what's available? You've already attempted to.
So typically, these kinds of projects would come from a state of Illinois grant. They're construction grants. And we did get $50,000, last year when we did the HVAC at the high school. So we did apply and we got the full amount, so that was good. We can continue to apply for those as money becomes available at the state level. I do know that our Kaneland Foundation Executive Director is looking to work with some partners, specifically on the academy. So she is working hard, and that may help offset some of this. So that's a good thing. In terms of additional monies, I'm not familiar with any that might be available. I do know that whenever we learn about it, we target somebody to make sure we try and get it.
Have we had any discussions with CDB and our elected representatives on approaching CDB?
We have not, because a lot of their money tends to go to districts with higher poverty levels.
Title I districts. Okay.
Yeah. And we have some Title I, but it's this much compared to our
No,
neighbors.
I get
significant.
compared to 131 or 129.
Exactly.
We can go through the list.
You got it.
Okay. But there would be no harm in those discussions because I remember even Wheaton Warrenville 200 was getting CDB funds for several, for the whole redo at Wheaton Warrenville South. What turned Wheaton Warrenville into Wheaton Warrenville South. And admittedly, that was a couple decades ago. But
But it's true.
Yeah, but
It doesn't hurt to, yeah.
But for the new middle school, Hubble, the new Hubble, which they built, ab initio,
We can certainly look into it. It won't hurt to at least investigate and find out what's available.
May I approach?
You? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah. I will defer to Dr. Layden.
What was the question?
May I approach some of these elected representatives?
You know what, let's talk through that, because
Okay.
what we don't want is,
No, I get that
Yeah, we'll
completely.
talk through
That's the
that.
reason I'm asking today.
we'll talk through that for sure. And the other thing, to answer part of Adam's, Mr. Gonzalez's question too, we do, when we get weekly emails from the State Board of Education, our state superintendent, Carmen Ayala, she will include some of that information in there. So one of the things we do is, as Dr. Fuchs said, based on whether it's curricular dollars, whether it's maintenance dollars, whether it's dollars for staffing, we'll look at each of those grants. And as we look through those grants, we look to see where it might apply for Kaneland, because many times some of them are pretty good because they give the stipulations pretty clearly, and we'll know right away whether we qualify them or not. And if we do qualify, we'll figure out how to apply for them.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you. Do you have any questions except for with the water tower? I've got those written down on the projects listed for 23-24. I know I need to get the budget projections updated so that I put that information with the recommendation. I know you need some water tower information. Anything else on this very last page that you would want to know before June? Because there's a long time between this meeting and June. I want to make sure I get it all, if at all possible.
If we come up with something, we can always email you between now and then.
Absolutely.
Correct? Just, okay. I feel like I would need more time to digest.
Sure.
Thank you, Dr. Fuchs.
All right, thank you.
All right, there's no action needed, so we're going to move on to J2, discussion of student representative to the Board of Education.
Yes, thank you. This is a topic I've held for a couple months till we had a little bit of time to work on it now that school is out. What I'd like to do is, since it was a topic for future agenda from a board member, I would like to share some of the ideas that I've seen and learned about for student representation to a board, get some feedback from the board, compile that, and then bring back an official recommendation in June. So there are a couple things we can do. The three things, or a combination of the three. The first one is a student representative on the board. So it's a student representative who goes through an application process vetted through myself and the principal at the high school, and then they attend the board meetings and they are a student rep. They have no power, no authority, non-voting member, but what their job has traditionally been to do is to represent the student body at the board. So if there's a certain topic that we're looking for student representation, that student can go and try to collect that to bring that back to the board. If we want to task that student to go get feedback on something, that student can go and do that. And so it would be through an application process. We would start the information right at the beginning of the school year, and if we collected it, as we collected it, we would interview the students, and then we could have the students start probably at the end of September, would be the timeline for that. So that's one idea. Another idea is through the superintendent, use the current student groups that we have. Harder Middle School this year started a principal advisory committee, and I came and observed it once or twice, and the principal meets with them monthly, talks about topics that are upcoming topics or topics for review, and I could attend those meetings, insert myself into those, get student feedback. So it would be the benefit of that we would hear from more students as opposed to one student as a student rep. We would hear from more students. And then also at the high school, they also have a principal advisory committee, but that was on hold for 2 years due to COVID. That will be coming back in through Mr. Horn next fall. And then also there's the student council. So we have those student groups that are already active, and if the board wants that option or a portion of that option, I can attend those meetings as they are scheduled, bring topics to those groups, or solicit or elicit input from them. Then the last thing, which would be a new recommendation that one district or two districts do, they have a student advisory committee, and that is directly overseen and communicates with the superintendent. So it's not an existing principal group, it's not an existing student council. It would be a new committee that the superintendent oversees, primarily high school, more so than elementary or middle school. But it would be high school, and we could have student representatives from freshman class, sophomore, junior, senior, so representation across all four. Or the last part, point 4, is a potential hybrid. So is it part of one and then utilize the other ones as the board directs me to when topics are needed, or I just go in, get that feedback based on what the topics are. Surveying all students too often is a burdensome task, and to try to get accurate feedback can be challenging, as opposed to myself or the principal just attending the meeting and getting immediate feedback from the groups that already exist. So, since this topic was asked to be brought back to the board for a future agenda, and on this agenda, based on some of those ideas or thoughts, any recommendations of one or the other, or more ideas that you need feedback for me to bring back to the board to make a decision in June?
So, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, please.
So, during the III conference, I was in a session with another superintendent from a smaller, or not superintendent, board member from a smaller district. And they had it was just a middle school, I believe. And so they had a middle school representative, and he was explaining to me how it works. So I then signed up for a session on this topic, and I got to interview these students. They brought the students up for a panel, and it was interesting. But the three things that stood out for me is, one, it's an awesome opportunity for a student to have this accolade on their resume. It's another thing that they can put on their resume. It gives the student body an opportunity to have a voice at this table. The one thing that I don't want to caution, but that I'll bring up, is that these guys are. The example was given. They wanted to implement a. Actually, it got signed into law. The mental health day. They wanted a mental health day every so often, and they just have to say no. They're going to come up with stuff and say, hey, we want free lunch from wherever we pick, whatever, blah blah blah. But I was a big proponent. Dr. Lawler beat me to the punch. I was a big proponent of doing something like this with our board. My preference would be to have, maybe not at all meetings. Plainfield, I was talking to the superintendent from Plainfield, and he was saying that they don't attend all meetings, but if they have something come up, they will attend. And I think it's good to have them, give them the opportunity to sit and speak. It's not easy to do that, and so it's really an opportunity for growth with the student. Gives us a chance to hear from the student body, which we don't hear from too often. And so
the group go ahead.
To your point, I really prefer having a single student point of contact. I really fear if this gets pushed to a committee, to a group level, you might get more feedback, but you won't get the accountability nor the accurate dialogue that we need.
Sure.
With a student representative. That's ultimately, I think, what we're seeking. While a committee might have more, I would rather have a single point of contact.
So the groups that you talked to, were they just like the student rep? There was not like an advisory group also, like a hybrid?
So this was it seemed to almost be semi-hybrid, but it was an individual rep with each school, and it sounds like the three, or I think it's 4 schools, the high schools, got together and collaborated as well. one of the things that they were saying they had difficulty on was getting responses from the student body. Like they kind of felt like they were left on their own to go out and solicit information to find out, hey, what do we want to bring to the board? What changes would we like to see? A lot of people didn't understand the role, and so a lot of the students didn't understand the role, and so therefore they didn't feel like they felt that they struggled in getting any valid information to take to the. So I don't know. It'd be nice if they could work with like the student council potentially, or have that, because students recognize most students recognize what the student council is, what their purpose is, and so maybe incorporating it. I don't know, but I do believe having an individual representative, maybe not mandatorily all the meetings, but including them every so often. They have no voting power. They have no power, but it's a good opportunity, I think, both for us as a board and as them as a student.
For the advisory group, how is that sought out, or like what would you look for, like kids from each grade, or?
Yeah. If it was a newly created, the ones that are already created, student council and the principal advisory committees, those are already made, already exist, but a superintendent advisory committee would be intentional to have 2 or 3 students per grade level. That way each grade is represented, because there might be topics that impact certain students more than others. If we're talking about transition to high school, we want to talk to freshmen. If we're talking about AP programming, plans after college, that would be more junior, senior related.
So it's been a long time since I've been in high school. How's student council chosen for here at Kaneland?
Is it by grades?
Well, is it vote of students, or is it?
I'm Mr. Lawler.
Just in time.
Dr. Lawler. It is by grade, but I can't remember if it's, I don't know, just be a guess right now, how they're voted. If they're voted in, or they're voted by their peers. I'm sure they probably put up, again, a long time like you, my guess is there's probably an interest sheet that you fill out, probably recommendations from a couple teachers, and then there's probably a voting piece at some part.
The reason I asked was just, we want a diversity of kids. And so not necessarily, and I'm not saying that's what this is, but like student council, back in my day, it was more the kids that were the popular kids, or that were well known. And so we want that, but we also want the kids that maybe are other parts of the school, so I want to make sure if we do, I don't know if I necessarily, student council's already busy, they do stuff, so, it's maybe a student advisory developing something like that, and hopefully tapping into other kids that are usually not tapped into. So I'm kind of the same thing, a hybrid. I would like somebody here at the table, that would be a vote, that would be a voice, but then also, you and that person would go and meet with the advisory group.
Okay.
I think it would, I don't know, again, I think kids would they're going to hear you, and they're going to, obviously, you're going to come back with them and stuff, but I think if somebody their own age presents things to them too, it might be a little bit more comfortable for them. So, Mr. Curie?
Yeah, we have to give them some sort of direction. We want a wide variety of opinions. Do that is not going to work. I mean, we're giving him an impossible task.
Well, there's no recommendation. It was more of just kind of like brainstorming tonight, like what are some ideas? So that's why I'm asking if it's advisory group.
If the board, first one's very simple. I have the applications already done, ready to go. Second one's simple too. The third one would be the biggest challenge to build that diversity.
Right.
But if that's what the board is looking for, we'll figure out how to set up an enrollment process or set up an application process to make sure we get variety of students as best we can.
I'm not sure I'm a fan of this idea, but if I was, I'd just dump it on the student council and say, you guys figure it out. You're the government of the high school, supposedly.
Yeah, I say get a point of contact. While having the committee, provide input in, ultimately, for the student input to be most meaningful and to get the feedback we need a single point of contact.
Which could be the rep from the student council appoints a rep, and that's...
Like at the university level, I remember at Western Illinois centuries ago by now, pretty well, it's been a while.
Moving on.
I was in the student senate, but then we also had a board of governors a representative on the board, a student representative on the Board of Governors, which Western fell into in terms of the governing, and having one person worked the best both ways.
And it could be, I mean, if we delegate this to the student council, they could have
Let them
6
pick-
months terms, or, you know, you get the first half of the year, how, you know.
Or the
But
full year.
I feel like that's kind of leaving out the junior high and the grade schools, but at the same time, we don't want a fifth grader at the board meeting as a, you know.
Wanting Portillo's, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't
So,
get my earrings. You know.
I don't know, maybe we could task them with meeting with the junior high committee or principals committee. That could be the job of, but again, I'm not quite sure I'm in favor of this, but,
Are you saying you're not in favor of the concept altogether, or
Correct.
just, okay?
I don't know where we're at. I'm really sad that I missed the first part.
Yeah.
you didn't really miss much. You really,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Just shared options to work with a student, which you asked us, or you
Yeah.
asked us as a board member to bring back a student rep. Shared that a superintendent advisory committee could be explored, which would be something new and different, or the utilization of the existing groups, which are principal advisory groups, student council, those kind of groups,
Okay.
or some sort of a hybrid, that the board would like to discuss that. And so as part of the discussion we're having now, we're not going to take action tonight. If there is more feedback or more instruction that you would like, or direction you'd like to give me, I'll bring back the official recommendation back based on what we
Okay.
hear tonight in June.
Or
Do
we
we-
would have one student rep that would go through an application process.
Yeah.
And Dr. Layden would then read those and then choose one.
Okay.
And then based on Mr. Gonzalez's comment, we would work on training the student, what the expectations are, what a board packet looks like, how they read a board packet,
Yeah.
that based on the packet or based on future topics, what that student would be tasked to do. That would be helpful for the board if there's a way to do that.
And also get their input on the agenda, too. Make it meaningful.
Well, if they were sitting here, that would be, come up during topics for future agenda.
Mhm.
They'd have the opportunity to.
But would they be empowered to vote?
No.
They would not vote.
Yeah, I don't
No,
think so.
no.
Yeah,
No.
right. Okay. that's-
They'd be a
yeah.
reporting entity, not a voting
Yeah,
entity.
yeah, okay.
Ryan, if you don't mind me asking, just to hear the opinion of someone who's, not necessarily going to support it, what's the main for you?
It seems very cumbersome, and I'm not sure that we're going to get the value of the feedback that you're looking for.
So I can tell you why I brought it up. Well, there's a couple of reasons, but we do it at Wabanzi. Now, this wouldn't be I'm not speaking for Wabanzi. I'm not explaining that, right? I want to separate that out, right? Okay. If you're watching, okay, right? But what's nice about it is when the student representative is there, oftentimes we'll say, there's questions like, what would a student think, or what would a student, and it brings that perspective to the table. But it's twofold. I think it's also good for the student, right? It's an opportunity for students, I think, in the way that we're trying to find opportunities for students all the time to celebrate them and, maybe find ways for them to become, more active. And so what we have found is that student oftentimes becomes more civically engaged. A lot of them end up going into public service kinds of things because they become familiar with, Robert's rules and those kinds of stuff, right? Where, I don't know about you guys, but until I was a board member, this stuff was very foreign to me. I didn't know any of these processes, right? And so it opens those doors up, and I think, at least for the way we do it, it's kind of a resume builder too, right? It helps them get that kind of leadership stuff that they would never have. Did you guys already talk about that?
Just a little bit, yeah.
Okay, so that's why I was thinking it'd be a great opportunity for a high school student. But then also, we heard a lot from the community that we're trying to build communication better. And I just thought this would be another avenue to help build communication with community members. And students are a big stakeholder group that, really aren't represented at the table. So I thought maybe it'd be one way to bring that up too.
Well, and one thing to keep in mind is that the implementation, like with anything, the implementation will be cumbersome, but once you get it going, and then, 4 years down the line, it's assumed. Or, you have the election ahead of time, the outgoing representative can, tutor the new one coming in. So I get what you're saying, but I also think that it once it's implemented and it's in full effect, it won't be as much of a burden, and in terms of cost of the district. I personally, the reason I'm behind it is because I think having an accolade like this on your resume is an opportunity for the students.
It's one of 400, 350 was it graduating?
343.
I'm sorry?
343.
It's one of 343. It's not a big thing that we're doing for all the student body. It's one kid. But, and I guess I'm not against that one child either, or kid, person, whatever the right term is.
Sure.
It's, I don't know. I'm not convinced of the benefit, but if you guys are, let's move forward.
Was there a fear of cost? I didn't think so.
No.
Right, I didn't think there'd be, okay.
So we were talking more in general of like doing a hybrid of like having a student represent, that would be at these meetings, but then also maybe having like a committee or advisory group too. That's not at these meetings, but would meet monthly or whatever.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I personally would like to hear from the student body. I'd like to hear, even if we can't, move forward with them, I'd like to get their perspective on things. It's I don't know.
So I don't know if you can answer it, or you like, how does the student representative, like, do they talk during things, or are they just like not normal board member because they're not going to vote, but would they have conversation, or would it just be more they listen, they take it back to their committee, and then they inform you what they found? Like, how much do they engage with us?
Yeah, we would have to, each board would work differently, because as I talked with a couple boards that have a student rep, they interact in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they bring a report. They bring a report each time that they come that is set on what's going on, what are your activities, what's going on at the high school, what's new, those. Then there's other ones that just come and report when tasked on certain topics.
Okay.
So that would be something that the purview of this board would have to determine if that's the route that the board chose to go.
So I guess the reason my question was for that was because I want to set them up for success. So like if we do send them out to go survey students, who are they surveying? Will they have something, will the school be able to support them in something where they can do a student email, or what does that look like, versus them going down the hallway and just trying to poll kids,
Which is why I suggest we tie it to the student council if we're going to do this, so that they have infrastructure in place already.
That was the difficulty of the districts I spoke with, or at least the individual students. They let us, we interviewed the students at the panel, and they said the difficulty was, first of all, getting the student body to understand what their role was, but second of all, being open with the feedback, understanding what type of feedback would be appropriate for them to go through. They did also mention that it's not, they don't go to every board meeting. As appropriate as things come up, they'll be on the, their time will be on the agenda, but it's not something where every meeting we're going to sit next to so-and-so and,
I'm sorry, you said their time will be on the agenda. I guess I'm not clear what you meant by that. I thought you were suggesting we have the high school students sitting on the board during the discussion available to interject as they feel they want to.
I guess it depends on how we structure it, but my vision wouldn't be that, like, they would be chiming in on this. I don't know. Would you guys want them chiming in? Like the capital improvements plan here, I don't know that we would want them to,
Well, that's what I thought you were suggesting, so I guess we need to define better what it is that the plan or what their thought is.
And I think the different districts do it differently, from my understanding.
And each one does look different. So as the topic was broached for future agenda, just wanted to bring options back tonight to hear exactly what this board is looking for, and then we can construct that position specifically to what this board wants and is looking for. Or not an individual person, it could be the student council too. So there are various options that could be used. A student could come and report. We could just get feedback as needed, as you said, Mr. Gonzalez, when there is a topic we're looking for, or when this board gets to the place in the agenda, there could be a placeholder for student topics as needed, and then if you direct me to then go to the student council to get the feedback, and then have a student come back, there's various options that we could do and that I've seen across different districts.
So Aaron, you were the one that suggested this
Yeah.
stuff? All right, so what would you like to see?
I'm open. I really am. So I'm open to a discussion. I want this to be like my version,
Well-
right? Yeah, but the way I envisioned it, or when I
Okay.
proposed it, was the student would join us, and as we were talking, I was thinking every one of those is a fantastic learning opportunity for a student, right? Like maybe they aren't interested in capital projects, but oh my gosh, what a great thing to teach them, right? Maybe they don't understand budgets, but another great way to teach them, right? And I think they would bring a different perspective, and they would ask questions, and and if they didn't, maybe they're more shy, then we could retool and figure out how things work, right? I just think having a student present, right, represents that stakeholder group and gives them an opportunity that, and I'm all for trying to find as many opportunities. And yeah, it's only one, but each year could be a different one. So, we could do that. Yeah.
So Aaron, you visualize a single point of contact?
I mean, I would
As
think
opposed
so.
to a committee,
yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, going to I wouldn't be
kinda what you were
opposed to
talking
going to an
about, too.
advisory
That's-
committee or something
yeah,
afterwards. Yeah, that's fine too. I don't think we should have 20 of them in here.
Yeah.
Then we have to have classroom management, right? Like, don't even do that kind of stuff. So.
So you mentioned there's some that are advisory groups, like if we were to develop just a new one, because then we would be able to pinpoint kids that actually want to learn about this stuff,
Yeah.
versus student council, they might not be interested in this kind of stuff. They're interested in homecoming and prom and all that other stuff that's going on in the high school, they might not necessarily. So if we just could, instead of one person, they would pick one person every month to come.
We don't want a rotating group.
No.
I don't want a rotating
Okay.
group of kids showing up because we lose any continuity that we might have with how the
Well,
meetings work and what.
Continuity and consistency, one of the districts that utilize that option number 3, availability, whose turn,
Right.
those things become more challenging as opposed to a person who's been dedicated, they know what the board meeting dates are, and they can regularly attend.
Okay.
So I did see a district that did it at the middle school level, 8th grade. It was 8th grade specifically, because for maturity reasons or whatnot. And then high school level. I don't know if that's something that you guys even want to discuss, or you want to, if we do move forward, you want it to be just a high school type thing. But I just wanted to throw it out there, to ponder, I suppose.
I don't want an 8th grader here, personally, but I wouldn't be opposed to if we pick this person from the high school, however that random person picks, if they interface with, you said there's a principals committee already in place at the junior high, if those groups to talk to each other about whatever it is, that I'd be fine with that, but I don't want 2 students here, a high school and 8th grade student.
Yeah. I'm in favor of the high school student, do one single high school student. Because we need the ability to go get the feedback we need, and a single point of contact will do that, as opposed to a committee after committee. I mean, you might get some breadth of opinion, but if you get an opinion or some research that you need, everyone, someone, no one type of thing,
If we go with the one person, we just definitely need to make sure we support that person in some way, because they are going to be on their own.
Yeah.
Being so enough that I think Mr. Gonzalez made the comment, people didn't even know who that group was or what they represented. So now if we have one person in all of the high school, then so communicating that, who this person is and why they're asking surveys and stuff like that. So I think that would be a little bit more cumbersome too, of trying to support one person only. So that's why I kind of lean a little bit more to some kind of a group, be it either student council or be the principal advisory group, just because I think more that, like you said, I agree with you guys that one person should be here, but that one person then who's working with them to pull those the other information from the students and the different levels. I would not want a senior and then the freshmen aren't heard.
Well, I think it's important that we don't think that this one student can represent 400 people, right? Or
That's why we need to tie them into something if we're gonna do this. We can't just say, have a person.
I don't disagree that, again, when I was envisioning it, I wasn't thinking, oh, this person will speak on behalf of the entire Kaneland High School. I was thinking this person would speak on behalf of themselves and give us that perspective, and maybe we could pull some information from that, right? But I don't know. I don't think we would be like, well, this is what we should do now because this one high schooler said we should do it, right? So, yeah. But they should also have a chance to speak. And, yeah.
Maybe one person, if there's a person interested, maybe we could try to tailor it to have it be one student who comes from the student council. So then that way that student has that group to go back to for greater groupthink and conversation, represent that group, and then when you talk about how does the person integrate back to the school, if it's just one person by themselves going back trying to facilitate those kind of conversations, that would be a challenge. But if it's one student that has the student council to go back to, who's part of student council, that way there's a built-in group for however often they meet.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Any other comments or questions?
Just want to make sure I have the direction to bring back. So I want to make sure there's at least 3 of you that are to get the at least 3. Okay. So I will bring back more information, process, timeline, some of those things for a single representation. Not that we can't use those other groups at different times as needed, but a single representation or one single representative to the board, likely from the student council. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we're going to move on to J3, approval of policies from press, first reading.
Yep, the policies, as you saw in there are about 15 policies for board review. And just as a reminder, this is on first reading, so we'll talk through these, see what questions you have, if there's any additional information that needs to be gathered, either legal, state board, those kinds of things. I can bring that information back to the board. If there are no questions on those that had comments, then it'll come back in the next board meeting on consent agenda. Typically what we've done during this time, I will walk through those that had questions and share the questions that were posed and the recommendation that comes with it. The first one that we had was policy 230, which is the very first one. And I apologize, we don't have page numbers at the bottom, so I'll just refer to them by the policy number, which is up top left-hand corner. The first public participation, or the first policy, which is the public participation, the recommendation is to default to the 60 minutes of a time limit, and our board already has 2 public comments at a maximum of 30 minutes each, so we already meet this one. So my recommendation is just to go with the yes, the board would like to establish a maximum of 60 minutes because that's what we already use. Any questions on that one? It's following the recommendation from press. The next one is of comment is 580, which is court duty. There's the option here to have just licensed staff members be reimbursed for their time while they were out, but we're not a fan of that one. We're not recommending that one. What we'd like to do is go with on the second page on 580, which is the yes. We'd strike license, and because it follows our handbooks of any staff member that attends, whether they're in a licensed position or not, that they would be reimbursed for their time while they were on jury duty. As a civic duty, we believe that's the right thing to do. Any questions on 580? And again, the rest are 5-year reviews for legal updates, which we really don't have a lot of say over anyway. The next one is towards the very bottom, which is 7-270. Administering medicines to students. It's the last 2. So 7-270 and 7-285 go hand in hand. And if you recall, 7-270 we updated 2 years ago when this first became an option. The important thing to remember is administering medicines to students is that while we say we will do it, we are not required to do it if we cannot get the medicines available. So we have a doctor script who will provide them for us, and we've been able to over the last 2 years. So 727 holds us accountable as long as we have the medicines. As it says on the last page, when undesignated medication is available. So we will administer it when we have people that are trained in which to do so, but the key is having the medicine on site. So as a result, on policy 7285, the default answer is yes, because we have already approved policy 7270 that says when we have the medicines available, we will administer them. So 7285 is a check and balance to make sure that we don't approve this until you have 7270 approved, which we did 2 years ago. So we have that approved, and we had it verified through legal counsel to make sure that we were not held liable.
So basically, this just gives us the permission to give the kids drugs that they already have prescriptions for.
Yes. Or if they don't have the prescription for it, if we have Narcan, if we have some sort of medicine or epinephrine injectors, if the student doesn't necessarily have a prescription for that, but if they have a condition or they have an episode that requires those, we can utilize those legally based on these policies.
Only in emergency situations?
Yes.
Okay, so we're not gonna be giving kids penicillin because...
No.
Okay.
Nope. And it's for anaphylaxis prevention, and it's very detailed in there what it's used for, and that's why we have to approve it accordingly. Then the last one is 750. Sorry, it's the third to last policy, but it's the last one to note. On the second page, we're recommending to shift and strike the foreign exchange students with an F1 visa. We actually have not been practicing that for about 10 or 11 years, and we've not had F1 students in our district or in any of our buildings for 10 or 11 years. We were just, as it came to our attention that we have not, it's just an opportunity to update policy when we had our press policy to match our practice of not having F1 students. Any questions? Just matching our practice.
Can you just at a high level explain to me what the difference is between a J1 and an F1 visa?
Dr. Fuchs can.
Just a high level. I don't know.
Yeah, so for the F1, they're privately sponsored, so they're not just a family sending a foreign exchange student to live with another family. They're sponsored by, say, a business or the government, like that. Whereas a regular foreign exchange student, we do get those are the J1s, and they spend time with our families, and then a lot of times the kids will switch, and then those kids will go to the other families, wherever they came from, for a semester or a week or a month. Just depends on the program.
Sure.
There are all kinds of programs, but the private ones, we've opted out of that program many years ago for various reasons. So, they would have to pay tuition, the F1s, so, and they're only allowed to stay here for 1 year.
Okay.
They have limits, so. Trying to think of anything that would be helpful to difference.
It kind of.
I think the biggest
explains-
thing is that they're sponsored
Yeah,
privately.
sponsored by private entity, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go back to one, but go ahead.
Nope. Which one?
I had stepped out of the room, but I guess it's 2.230, public participation, and one of the options was the amount of time that we allow for public comment.
Yes.
Is that what, 60 minutes is what it says, and I'm assuming that's 30 and 30, but is that what we want to do? Because I'm assuming we can pick whatever we like.
Yes, the current practice that we have at Kaneland is 60 minutes, and you know that the 230, like you just shared, and 60 is what's recommended to allow time for communities. But yes, boards can determine the length, and they can determine whether there's 2 or 1. Some boards of education only have 1 public comment at the end of the end of the meeting, and some have 2. So it's up to each board to determine how much time they want to utilize for public comment.
I would be in favor of making the first one a little bit longer and skipping the second public comment. It just seems to be a scorecard of how we did at the meeting, so I don't see the value. It's not that I don't value public opinion, it's just if we give them the time at the beginning of the meeting.
Interesting. Is that, I mean, you've been around longer, Ryan. Has that always been the case?
For the first many years I was on the board, we usually didn't have public comment,
Yeah.
so it's only been since COVID that we've really had.
I think that when I joined, I mean, it would be Fran in the audience, right?
So
Not that you would do public comment, but you'd be there, right?
My 2 cents is, I personally feel that the first public comment, people say what they're gonna say, they present it to us. By the second public comment, sometimes they have an opinion on what's been discussed between now and then. And I think there's potentially value in that, just from my perspective.
Yeah, I'd agree.
that's why I brought it up. I mean, it was.
I'd agree. I don't feel strongly either way. I'm open to it.
I agree with, I think sometimes after we've had some conversation, then people want to do the second comments, public comments. So I do like having the 2 separate ones.
I would offer that if you wanted to do 1 public comment, maybe move it to then, if we're going to do that. That way at least the discussion's been had and everything's been taken in. But
Kind of like that idea.
I don't mind that. I like that.
The challenge with having just 1 at the end is if it's a longer meeting, those that are choosing to come as public comment would have to wait many times 2 or 3 hours, maybe 4 hours to have the comment. So that's the drawback, and the idea of public comment is to keep it so that it's accessible for the public, as opposed to making it burdensome or too short that people really can't truly hear from the community. But again, it's the board's purview, but that's typically why boards that have it at the beginning and at the end is to be able to hear 2 different times. But the board's discussion to have and decision to make. I can
I think partially what I'm struggling with is, I think sometimes the first one gives the, I don't know if the right word, the impression that if you come and say what you're gonna say, that things that have already been on like consent agenda could be changed. I mean, they could be, but they're not likely gonna be from that moment, right? It's more likely if we had that dialogue way in advance of the agenda, right? So the first one sometimes can be a struggle for me. The second one, I think if people have heard things and then they have to share ideas, that makes sense to me. But like I said, I don't feel strongly about canceling the first one, but I'd be willing to shorten them.
so are we saying then, if we do shorten it to 1, we're saying 1 60-minute public comment?
That's a lot.
Or
Yeah,
one
that's-
30-minute.
Or 1:30, okay, so then just shorten public comment time total to 30 minutes.
And typically in policy, it's also built into that there's flexibility with the board president, or in this instance, Vice President Simmons, to, based on the number of attendees, you can extend it, make it a little bit longer, you can make it more flexible, because right now we have 3 minutes per person, we have 20 minutes on a topic, and then 30 minutes total at each of the 2 public comments. But there have been times where this year, each of the public comments has taken the full 30 minutes. So instead of just keeping it 20 minutes on a topic, the 1 topic that we had was for the entire time, which was 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And which is typical to do if there's only 1 topic that's being sounded out at that meeting. But the board president, again, could shorten it down to 20 and say there's 1 topic, and the other part that the vice president or president, whoever's leading the meeting, can do is to consolidate topics. So if there's 3 different topics, we can find a voice to say, you have 20 people here to speak, there's no way you're all going to get done. who would be 3 representatives to speak during your 20-minute portion of time. So there's flexibility built in within that hour, but we have not had an inordinate amount of meetings in which there were more than one topic that needed 20 minutes each to be fully vetted during public comment.
Right. Yeah, I think part of it's also that we kind of bent our own rules many times to try to accommodate people and give them a chance to speak, right? But I would be against an hour at the end.
I guess why don't we just leave it then, because there doesn't seem to be a consensus on anything.
Okay. Yeah. And then when we get to the next topic, J4, that can be a topic we can always address too, because, well, I'll get to that in a second.
So I need to do a motion, right?
Oh, yeah.
On first reading, yes.
Yes, okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the Kaneland Board of Education of the recommended policy changes on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Dr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mr. Mankiewicz.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
5-0, a motion is carried. We are going to move on to J4, Board of Education Retreat for Self-Evaluation.
Yes, this is also a topic that typically the board would have a retreat every 2 years after the election. So if you recall, last summer we had it to incorporate our new board members from the past election, and then following that cycle, we would have one next summer after the new board is elected or current board members are re-elected. But topic for future agenda was brought to the board. So based on that, would like to allow the board to have some discussion tonight on a couple different things. Do we still want to have one this summer? Which if we do, that's great. Just a reminder that we can either do it in open session or closed session, but if it's closed session, it has to be through the IASB or through the LUDA organization. And the last 2 that we've had in closed session have both been through LUDA. I contacted them to ask them their availability for this summer if the board wanted to do it. And they do have availability, and they will work with our schedule as we determine we want to have one and what that timeline might look like.
So I'm the one that brought this topic up, and I kind of did it out of habit, thinking that we were supposed to do it every year. So that's why I brought it up. I didn't really have anything particular I wanted to do it. It was just, what are we doing that? Because we do it every year. So it's entirely up to the rest of the board if they want to, don't want to, but.
There was conversation about us talking about the calendar, looking at that, so we get a better understanding, especially speaking for myself, being new, understanding like when certain things are presented, to that we did talk about maybe doing that during this meeting. I don't know if that's a benefit.
That was, I think, also Mr. Carey bringing up that to talk about the organization and the timing, the planning of how they all fit together. That would be the actual conversation itself. The planning of it could be in closed session, but the actual topic itself of the topics, that would be an open session topic. Mm-hmm. So if the board wanted to have a retreat in closed session, the items that we've talked about in the past could be the same items that we would cover. But again, we usually did that as we transition new board members in. But Mr. Carey's topic, Dr. Fuchs and I, we've talked about it, and we'll have it come at a future meeting as we just put together the whole year of topics, how they fit together, how they're interrelated and interchangeable, even though sometimes based on the state timeline, it doesn't always seem that way, but we'll make sure we put it together so that there's an understanding of why they fit that way. And then as far as a retreat this summer, as Mr. Carey just asked about what other topics, probably driven by if there are topics, or if there are topics the board would like to discuss in closed session as a retreat or open session, that's what we would hear tonight, if there are some. Or if it's just every 2 years, that's fine too.
Anybody?
I didn't have anything burning that I was dying to talk about. It was just, we normally do that, so.
I guess I mentioned to Ryan last night, I'd like it to be productive if we're going to do something, because we're taking, a night out, and, I'd like us to accomplish something out of it, not just, banter or, have talk.
So is there any topics, anybody, to make it purposeful? Otherwise, like I said, mine was only the calendar, but if you're going to do that at a later time. Yeah. So.
And that would be an open session to the board to be able to have dialogue.
Okay. So, I'm seeing none, nobody? Okay.
I mean, I would go if you have it.
Yeah, I'll attend. I don't have any, like I said, I brought it up because we always, have it. And
Right.
But I don't have anything particular that I feel we need to discuss, but I'll go if somebody has something.
I kind of feel the same way. If you guys want to do it, I'll attend, but I don't.
Yeah.
And I guess not.
And the other thing the board could do is always consider, it doesn't always have to be a summer retreat. If we get into the summer and into the fall, and there are topics that come up that would be, that fall under Open Meetings Act for closed session, we can always schedule it another time too. We just typically do it to the summer because it follows the April election, and then the training and the new boards coming together to set their goals and self-evaluation. So it's not something that has to only be in the summer. It's something that the board could revisit if they wanted to. But I'm hearing nothing at this time.
Just as a point of clarification, we can hold a meeting in open session, but not have anything on the agenda, and then go into closed session if we needed to. Is that right? Can we have an agenda like that?
In what way?
So could you have a call to order, do all this stuff, but not have any of this stuff, and then go, okay,
Wait,
and then
so
go-
no new business is what you're saying?
Yeah, but then go straight to closed session.
That's what we have done for our retreats.
Yeah, okay, so you could do, but we could do that without a retreat as well. I guess I was asking.
Yes.
Okay.
But again, to go into closed session for I think there's 13 or 14 allowable topics.
Yeah, right.
We could go into closed session for those at any time, but if it's for a retreat, we would need to have the IASB or a LUDA representative there for a retreat.
Right, okay.
But if there's a different Kaneland-related topic that falls under Open Meetings Act, we could call a meeting for just that. And I
Okay.
believe we have. There was a couple summers ago, we were coming off of a contract negotiation, called a special meeting for just
Right.
negotiations.
I thought so.
Talked about negotiations, then took action back in open session, because action always has to be taken in open sessions.
I was just thinking if one of the 13 or 14, whatever the items are, that was what we wanted to talk about, we wouldn't necessarily have to have the LUDA people come. We could just have a
Yes.
closed session meeting.
Mhm.
I think not to knock the LUDA people, but sometimes they have their own agenda versus what maybe we need to accomplish, so.
I have a brief question. I hate to always be the numbers guy, but we obviously have to pay these LUDA individuals to
Yes.
come out here, correct?
Yes.
What does that cost roughly?
I think it was about $2,000.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Hearing none at this time.
so I don't have to do a motion or anything?
No motion.
Okay.
Not at this time. Thank you for your input.
All right, we're going to go move on to superintendent and board reports.
Yeah, two things, or a couple things. The foundation, the Kaneland Foundation met last week and approved a series of staff grants. Every spring, the staff has the opportunity to apply for grants through our Kaneland Foundation. And so there are always, it's typically between $8,000 and $10,000 worth of grants based on the foundation fundraisers. And as Becky Greenlee has shared, when you met her back in the fall, she will be here back in the fall again and bring in our recipients, and they will share a little bit about their grants, how they've been used and how they're impacting students, because they're all student-centric grants that our teachers and support staffs apply for. In 2 weeks, we have a Hall of Fame meeting. The Hall of Fame meets quarterly to review induction ceremony process, to review candidates. So we do have a meeting coming up for two things. Number one, to review our induction ceremonies from this year, and also to continue and finish the planning for the 25th anniversary celebration, which, as I shared earlier, will be next year's the 25th anniversary of the Hall of Fame. And there'll be 2 or 3 events throughout the year, a fall event, a winter event, and a spring event, to try to capture those that are available to not only be inducted, but also to be brought back and recognized as Kaneland Hall of Fame inductees. And then just a reminder that our next board meeting is a little longer between meetings, because we have one June meeting, so it's June 27th as a reminder. So that's all I had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any board reports? Nothing? Good. All right,
Just,
topic.
Kudos to graduation planning. Everything went awesome. Another great ceremony.
Yes.
Thank you. Northern does a great job, and our staff does a good job getting our students ready.
It was cool seeing Miss Maris come in
Virtually.
virtual.
Yeah.
Changing times.
Yeah.
All right, but move on to topics for future agendas. Anybody have anything? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to second chance to do public comments. Okay. First one on our list is Max Gordon.
Good evening, and why am I here? I appreciate boards. I really, I've been doing this only 2 years attended. I'm from St. Charles, Max Gordon from St. Charles. So why did I come over to Kaneland? And let me reflect something before I tell you why. I see boards as almost powerless in really affecting what I'm most interested in. And Stan, Superintendent, if you contact your fellow superintendent, yeah, they know me over there talking about academics. I don't know what's happened to public school. I got the piece from Facebook on the questionnaire for a 4 going to be 5-year-old. I thought, okay, how would good and decent people send that to a parent? I can't imagine this board said, you know what? Let's get these gender things straightened out, this pansexual. Let's figure out what we got coming at us. We got a lot of stuff, right? So I can't believe that you all did it. Well, you didn't do it. Mike Simmons, state rep out of Chicago, he thought that would be a genius moment. We need more data. But why do we need data? Why would you ever gather data as a state? So you can parse kids into pieces and create what? Play with me. Programs. Right? People get employed. I can ask for money. I can write bills. How did you get a sex ed bill? My friend's going to talk about. Grove Foundation out of Palo Alto. That was a guy who was head of Intel. I was mad as a hatter. I was going to write every board member. I pulled up their site. There were 2 board members. His wife and his daughter. I said, holy cow! And they've supported the National Sex Education Standards, which is a lobby group. So it brings me to the point is, how do you get and I lean on St. Charles the same way. I'm just asking you, how can you get parents back involved in schools? Parents have been shut out. I think Sandy Hook was the first chill on, would you agree? I think Sandy Hook was the chill that closed the schools. And then COVID, that completely closed the schools. You've got to get help. As a board, I see you as really almost powerless to affect the academics. I really do. I've watched it over in St. Charles. I got my friend from St. Charles. We've leaned on the board. I've even backed off. I'm not a wise guy over there anymore. I'm trying to work in each school. We have 15 buildings, 15 principals that want to raise the scores of their schools. We're lining up parents to work with them in those schools, focused on the academics. I'm not here to do battle, but when I pull up the overall that you've got, here's the final, to me, the final grade for this school, is I look at the remedial for the graduates. How many college remedial? What's the percentage of remedial? It's 33%. 1/3 of your kids have to take remedial English or math at college.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
I was really fast. Thank you. Bring parents back into the schools. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Carla Macaluso? Thank you.
The spelling of the last name.
Carla Macaluso. I'm actually a first-generation American. And I've also been involved in D303 because I'm just really concerned about our next generation of kids. And I also came because I saw your K questionnaire asking for their deeply internal, personally held psychological knowledge of their own gender. They're 5. And how they, a lesbian is a woman who is emotionally, romantically, sexually attracted to other women. They're not women, they're kids. So it made me concerned about your comprehensive sex ed bill that passed. And that's here, and anyone teaching a health class is supposed to be substituting this. And so we're on the topic of 5 and 6-year-olds. So, There's these books called It's Perfectly Normal. It's a graphic for grades. It's a graphic how to have sex book that uses sexually explicit animated pictures, promoting masturbation, homosexuality, heterosexual sex, the genderbread person. It's the handout that the teacher hands out to the kids, and they are told they can be any gender they want from one day to the next. And the point of this is that we're spending so much time on the social emotional learning or critical race theory or cultural responsibility, whatever word salad, and so little time on the academics. And so Max didn't quite get to the point that you are 62% not proficient in reading and 65% not proficient at grade level in math. And so, spending all this time on sexualizing the next generation of kids when we're not focused on the basics, math and reading, and it's just really alarming for the future and the next leaders. The thing I'll say, and this, by the way, you can look it up, it's from the Illinois Family Institute, and it says hooking children on sex is a multi-billion-dollar business for Planned Parenthood. Once sexualized, children become customers dependent on their services: sexual and reproductive health counseling, contraceptive counseling, STD, HIV treatment counseling, transgender hormone services, abortions. So I don't know, if I have small kids, I'm looking at the homeschooling, I'm looking at other alternatives, I'm looking at grace schools, anything to protect my child's mind. And because once they see it or hear it, they never unsee it and unhear it. And so I like the last thing that they write on this, and it says, whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck and to be drowned to the depths of the sea. And that's Matthew 18:6. And I just have to read that because you're responsible for this next generation of children. We have to stop sexualizing them and just start teaching them, and that's what they're here for. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next is Tanya Grossinger.
It's me again. I'll be fast. Just a couple questions. I'm actually going to utilize what I heard in here to comment because I tend to do that in the second comments. So one of the questions that I have, I'm more in line with Mr. Carey on having a student representative here. The issue that I see, number one, is if students wanted to be here, they could. If they wanted to have a voice, they could, and they're not. And then the students that do come to do that, like our students that gave a standing ovation about the issues with SBG, we have yet to hear anything. There was supposed to be something on the agenda tonight, and it got pushed back. I never saw another date for it. I heard sometime in June, possibly. But when they do come and they do have their voice, is it really getting heard at all even? What is it going to do different up there than it's done standing here with us? My other question is, and maybe this could just be emailed to me, obviously, as an answer, because I'm a little bit confused. For your retreats, how does that go in line with Open Meetings Act and stuff? I know that if you have everybody, I'm just confused on how that works, what constitutes in the closed session to go closed session, I guess, for this retreat. And I that's just a personal question I have for Open Meetings Act, so if somebody could reach out and just let me know that. I think that's all I had. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Scott Stalcup.
Hi, Scott Stalkup again. Couple of things. I'm gonna give my 2 cents on the student on the board, and I agree. Some of the things I had here were, they have an open mic. They can come. They can write to the board. They can email the board. They can, etc. So if they want to be heard, they have avenues to do that. If you do, you got to respect it, and you got to show them that you care and that you will heed what they're offering you. Because if you don't, then you're just wasting everybody's time, yours and theirs. So my 2 points of caution, and if you decide to move forward with this, create a succession plan with it. You know, if you have a senior that's leading it, that is your liaison or your ambassador to the board through the city council, whoever, groom the junior to take place next year, or groom the sophomore to move up. So you have some hierarchy, so it's not a complete surprise. They kind of understand the process and what the role is and how to go about it. So that's my simple 2 cents. The other thing that I wanted to do is, you can research this as well, but Kaneland, right now, our proficiency against 4,250 some kids, 38% are proficient in reading. That means 65% roughly, that was 38%, so 62% roughly are not. When you look at math, there's 35% that are, that means there's 65% that are not. So if you want the history, I mean, you can reach out, we can give you the data, but you should do the research. That's what we need to be focusing on, is educating our kids, bettering these numbers. It was brought up a couple of meetings ago, the stats by somebody else, I don't remember who it was, but look into that, guys. We got to get better in educating our kids. That's what we're here for. That's everybody's interest here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move to closed session. The Board of Education is scheduled for a closed session where there will be no action taken following the session. Therefore, after the vote to go into closed session, the recording of tonight's meetings will be concluded. So I'll entertain a motion.
Hold on.
That, oh,
You have to read why we're going into
Oh.
closed session.
oh, yes, I do. Thank you. We're going into closed session for 5 ILCS 122C1 and 5 ILCS 122C2. I'll entertain a motion that the Kaneland Board of Education adjourn to a closed session at 8:42.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Mankowski.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Terry.
Aye.
Dr. Lawler.
Aye.
5-0, the motion's carried.